Hi, and welcome. Take a deep breath. Today's story is not loud. It is soft. It is slow, and it carries a lesson that will stay with you for a very long time. My name is Michael, and I want to tell you the story of my sister, Helen. She was not only my sister, she was also my best friend, my protector, my comfort, and the quiet light that kept my world alive, even in the darkest days of our childhood. Helen was the kindest person I ever knew. She had a gentle voice and a smile that felt like warm sunlight on a cold morning. Whenever life becomes too heavy, I would look at her, and somehow everything felt lighter. We lived in a very small house with our father after our mother passed away. The house was old. The walls were thin. The roof leaked every time the sky opened with rain. At night, the wind slipped through the cracks, whispering through the dark rooms. It was just the three of us, holding on to whatever little we had. Sometimes we had no dinner at all. Sometimes dinner was only a piece of dry bread, split between three hungry mouths. Our clothes were old and patched. The fabric was thin. The colors faded. But even in those moments, Helen tried to smile, and when she smiled, I found a reason to smile too. Life was hard. Life was unfair, but we held on to each other with everything we had. At night, when the lamps were turned off and the world became quiet, we whispered secrets under the blankets. We shared our dreams, our hopes, our future plans. She dreamed of becoming a teacher. She wanted to help children learn, to make the world a brighter place. And I dreamed of owning a small shop. Nothing grand, just a quiet place where life could finally feel gentle. Even in our poverty, we found happiness in our dreams and in the love we shared. But our father was different. He was strict. He was cold. He carried a storm inside his heart. He hated being poor. He felt shame in every breath, and that shame slowly hardened into anger. He loved money more than he loved joy, more than he loved peace, and eventually, more than he loved us. One afternoon, everything began to change. A rich man arrived at our home. He came in a large black car that seemed too big for our street. When he stepped out, he looked around with eyes full of disdain, as if the air around our home was dirty. He was old. His smile was thin, sharp, and false. He wore expensive clothes and gold rings. He smelled of power and arrogance. My father's hands trembled as he served the man tea. He laughed too loudly. He smiled too quickly. He tried too hard to impress him. They talked for a long time, behind the thin wooden door, and I could hear the low hum of their voices. When the man finally left, my father called Helen and me into the room. His face was glowing with excitement, but there was something disturbing in his eyes, something dark, something dangerous. He looked at my sister and said, "Helen, I have wonderful news. You are going to marry Mr. Blackwood. He is a very rich man. He will give us money. All our troubles will end." I watched as the color drained from my sister's face. Her hands shook. Her lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Then she whispered, "Father, please. I don't know this man. I don't want to marry him. I want to be a teacher. Please, don't do this." Her voice trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. And for a moment, I thought our father might soften, but he didn't. His face turned hard. His voice became cold and sharp. "You will do as I say," he said. "This is your duty to our family. You will have an easy life, and we will finally escape this poverty. This is final." That night, Helen cried silently. She held my hand tightly and whispered, "I don't want this life, Michael. I don't want this life." But none of her tears could change our father's decision. He had sold her dreams, her future, her freedom, all for the promise of money. Weeks later, the wedding day arrived. Helen wore a beautiful white dress, but the dress could not hide the sadness in her eyes. The guests smiled. The music played softly, but my sister looked like a ghost, walking through the world she did not belong to. It was the saddest day of my life, darker than any night we had ever known. The house was now filled with money, but it was empty of love, empty of joy, empty of light. She moved into Mr. Blackwood's big house in the city, a house that looked like a palace, but felt like a prison. I visited her whenever I could. Every time I found her more quiet, more thin, more pale, more broken. Her husband never used her name. He called her only wife, as if she were a possession he had bought with money. Sometimes I saw bruises on her arms. She always said she fell, or she bumped into something. But I knew the truth. I knew she was living in fear. Years passed. She had a child, a small boy, named Jacob. For a moment, I hoped he would bring her light, a reason to smile again. And she did love her son, deeply, fiercely. He became her strength, her breath, her only joy. But even with Jacob in her arms, she still lived in a cage, and the pain inside me grew, heavier every day. One afternoon I found her sitting in the garden, tears quietly rolling down her face while Jacob played with a toy car in the grass. She looked at me with empty eyes and said softly, "Michael, I cannot live like this anymore. This is not a life. I am dying a little every day." Her words cut straight into my heart. And in that moment, I made a decision. I had to save her. I had to save them both. After that day in the garden, I could no longer sleep peacefully. Every night, I lay awake thinking about Helen's words. I thought about Jacob, that little boy with soft eyes and a smile too pure for the darkness around him. I thought about the bruises my sister tried to hide. I thought about the emptiness in her voice, and slowly, the fear inside me turned into determination. I knew escaping Mr. Blackwood would be dangerous, very dangerous, but doing nothing was worse. I went home, sat in the quiet of my small room, and began to shape a plan, a secret plan, a plan that carried both hopes and risk. I told no one, not even Helen, because of her husband, discovered even a whisper of what I was preparing. He would destroy everything, her safety, my life, Jacob's future. So I worked in silence. I took a job washing dishes in a small, crowded restaurant. The hours were long. The steam burned my hands. My feet ached every night, but I did not stop. After my shift ended, I worked at a warehouse, lifting heavy boxes until my arms felt numb. Each night, I went home exhausted. My body hurt. My eyes felt heavy. But I told myself, this is for Helen. This is for Jacob. This is for their freedom. I saved every coin I could. I hid the money in a small box, beneath a loose wooden plank under my bed. Day after day, week after week, month after month, slowly the box grew heavier. And slowly hope grew, stronger inside me. Then came the night. Everything changed. I heard from a neighbor that Mr. Blackwood had left the city for a business trip. It was our chance, maybe our only chance. I gathered the money I had saved, every last coin. I bought 2 bus tickets to a faraway city, a city where no one knew us, a city where Mr. Blackwood's shadow could not reach, a city where my sister could breathe again. When the sky grew dark and the streets became quiet, I walked to the big cold house where Helen lived. My heart pounded in my chest. My hands shook with fear and hope. The gate creaked softly as I slipped inside. The windows of the house glowed faintly, but the rooms were silent. Helen opened the door, before I even knocked. Her eyes were red from crying, but when she saw me standing there, something flickered inside her. Fear, confusion, and hope. I stepped inside and whispered, "Pack one small bag. Only the most important things. We are leaving tonight." She stared at me, stunned, her breath trembling. For a moment, she could not move. Then she looked at Jacob, sleeping peacefully in his small bed. She looked back at me, and tears filled her eyes. "Are you sure?" she whispered. Her voice was weak but filled with something I had not heard in years. Emotion, longing, a tiny spark of courage. "Yes," I whispered. "We have to go now." Her hands shook as she packed. The small bag, just a few clothes, one blanket for Jacob, and a tiny wooden toy he loved so much. She lifted Jacob carefully into her arms. His head rested on her shoulder, soft and warm. He did not wake. Together, we stepped into the night. The house behind us stood, cold and silent, a place of pain we hoped to never see again. We walked through dark streets, avoiding lights, avoiding people. Every sound made us jump. Every shadow felt like danger. But we kept going, step by step, breath by breath, holding on to fear and hope at the same time. Finally, we reached the bus station. The air was cold. The lights were dim. My hands were shaking, so badly that I almost dropped. The tickets. But I held on. When the bus arrived, its doors opened with a soft hiss. We climbed aboard quietly and took our seats in the very back. I watched Helen hold Jacob close to her chest. Her eyes closed, her breathing uneven. She was terrified. But she didn't let go. The bus started moving, slowly, gently, carrying us away from everything we knew. Through the window, the city lights faded into the darkness until there was nothing left but the black night stretching out before us. For the first time in a very long time, I saw my sister cry, tears that were not from pain. They were tears of release, tears of hope, tears of freedom. When the bus finally reached the new city, dawn was beginning to break. A soft, pale light touched the sky. We stepped onto the ground, with only the clothes on our backs, a small bag, and a little boy still, sleeping in his mother's arms. We had nothing. No money, no home, no friends. But we were no longer in a cage. With the small amount of money left, we rented a tiny room in an old, broken building. The walls were cracked. The floor creaked under our feet. The windows were cloudy. But it was ours. It was safe, and no one could take it from us. I found work washing dishes again. The pay was small, barely enough for food, but it was honest. And every night, when I came home to see Helen and Jacob sitting on the floor eating warm soup, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. Helen began to heal slowly. She laughed sometimes, soft little laughs, but they were real. She played with Jacob on the floor. She braided his tiny hair. She told him stories in the quiet of the night. Her eyes were still tired, still sad, but now there was also light. A small light, a fragile light, but a true one. Life was still hard. We were still poor. We still feared the past, but we had each other. 3 hearts bound by love, 3 souls holding on to hope. And in that tiny room with the sound of Jacob's soft giggles filling the air, we began to build a new life. A life without fear, a life without pain, a life where dreams could breathe again. Thank you for listening. Your presence means everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so these stories can keep growing and keep touching hearts that need them most.